Right.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to My Travel Ball. This is a place where parents, players, coaches, instructors, and organizations can come to learn from each other and to share their knowledge and experience within the travel ball community. This community has been developed just for this niche, and we want everyone to share as much information and interact with each other as much as possible to make the experience better for everyone. Today, we welcome our first guest and a good friend of mine, Chris Bootcheck of Chris Bootcheck Pitching Solutions. Chris pitched for 15 years in the major leagues as a former Division I player and a coach, and is also an Auburn alum. Um, thanks for joining us for this discussion, Chris. And in the few years we've known each other, I've learned a ton from you and have seen firsthand some of the great work you do for the kids in our area. Um, Again, welcome. And if you can, start by giving us a little bit of a background, your pitching background and where you came from and how you got into the world of travel ball.
I appreciate you having me. Well, it as you said, it all started as a youngster growing up in northern Indiana and found a home at Auburn University and put in three really good years, productive years at Auburn, and went on to be drafted and fortunate enough to play 15 years of pro ball and learn from a lot of really great baseball minds. And I think that that's really helped me as a coach with information and different strategies to help athletes become better, become smarter, be more prepared, and that led me really to travel baseball, where I the area that we are in, it's a hotbed for baseball, and
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
passion that I have, and I wanted to continue to give to the community and families and players, and offer a platform for them to be able to pursue travel baseball and hopefully opportunities beyond that.
Well, you've seen you're right. It's a hotbed for baseball here, but just going back to your background a little bit, you've seen not only in the states in the majors with the Angels, but also you pitched overseas as well, correct? So you've got a kind of a couple of different perspectives.
Yeah, it was culture shock for sure. And you play around enough guys that have made the jump to play overseas, and going into it, you always think that you're prepared based on previous experiences that people have had,
Hmm.
which should help you. But until you really do it yourself, it's something that you just have to adapt while you're going through it. But looking back, it really gave me the opportunity to look at different styles,
Hmm.
um, different ways to attack a game that we're all familiar with. But when you look at now the popularity of like the World Baseball Classic, and having been there and done that, even winter balls where you Venezuela and Dominican, Korea, Japan, places that I've been, the styles that I see that most people don't when it's happening is very evident, because I can remember what that was like. Different things, the way they attack the game, and try to have success within the game. Just different ways of doing it. I think that's the beauty of baseball, that people don't really see, that there's different ways to do it,
Hmm.
to get to their end game. So it's been a great run, and I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people, and learned a lot to help me help other people.
Right. So I think it'd be, speaking of that, I think it'd be kind of fascinating just to see the differences. I mean, you were able to see guys at all ages, both here from, that grew up playing in the States, and whether they played travel at whatever level that was, or whether they played in college and went to the pros, and then in other, guys from other countries, both in the major leagues and overseas, you were able to see different development techniques and strategies that I'm sure you were like, you probably asked somebody how, where'd you learn this or where'd you come up with that? And you were like, wow, I hadn't even thought of that option. So that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, as a young player stateside, I was always just I wasn't the most outspoken guy, and once I got comfortable around people, I was asking veteran guys questions, and you'd be amazed that the time that they'll take with younger players to help them, because they probably remember what it was like.
Right.
So those experiences obviously helped me become a better player and a more knowledgeable player. But really on the coaching side, it's like, I like the time that they took with me, and I never would have been able to tap into that information. And what people don't understand is, and this is, I'm very open with people about this, is that I'm not a coach, and I don't think there should be many coaches that are like, I'm teaching you this because I did everything right. A lot of coaching, good coaching, um, is done because of the things that you did wrong. The pitfalls that you can help guys avoid because you went through them, and maybe
Right.
you did it the hard way. But so those are things that I felt veteran guys, it really it showed based on the time that they took with you, because they didn't just step into the big leagues and have all immediate success. It's a process.
Right. Well, and the other point that you made that I think is interesting and important to uh, remind people is everybody didn't do it the same way. Everybody didn't learn the same way. Everybody didn't approach the same way. And when we coach and we help kids, they're different. So, what works for A isn't necessarily going to work the same way for B. And you've got to realize, um, each of us has to realize that kind of we may pitch a little differently than somebody else, and it's not a cookie cutter formula that fits for everybody. You've got to figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, be able to identify those and kind of play to them, and do that.
Yeah, I think the most publicized example of what you're talking to is Aaron Judge and Al Altuve. Two
Yep.
very different people, but obviously, they're superstars in the game, and that, again, that's the uniqueness of baseball. I think it's what makes it attractive and keeps people drawn in to the love of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time when you're dealing with kids or I'm, coach on the field, see it all the time of like, just they want to know how do I do this and what's the ABC of it? And there isn't an ABC. It's like, okay, here's how I did it, or here's how he can do it. Now let's figure out what works for you. And let's play to that. Let's go that route. I mean, I'm sure that's the same thing with, kind of what we're talking about today on the pitching side of this and arm care side of this is everybody's not going to throw the same. Their mechanics aren't going to be the same. The same things that are going to keep one guy healthy aren't going to keep another guy healthy because it's just not going to work for his body. It's going to be a different thing. So
Yeah,
did
there's a lot of variables when it comes to arm care and routines and things like that, and it's really a trial and error type thing, because you could take a guy who's a starter and a reliever. Not only is the mentality different, but the training, and the arm care and the demands of when they're going to throw again are all different. When guys get sore, when I kind of map out these type of variables with parents that want information and want to do things better and be more proactive, there's so many variables that come into play that are real, that you have to factor in to really put something together that is going to be effective and provide some longevity for a player based on what the physical demands are.
so 100%. And so we're going to get into a little bit more of the arm care or some of that discussion. But I am curious also, and I'm sorry to kind of jump back a little bit, but taking what you learned, your days as a college pitcher, a D1 pitcher, pro pitcher, and then translating that to coaching at the D1 level. So take me through a little bit of what carried through there and how now you've said, okay, this is what I was dealing with college age kids that I'm coming down to the travel level. How much does that translate, and how much of that is the same, or is it completely different in what you kind of have to how you have to kind of tailor programs for kids?
Well, looking at my high school to college path, and I was an abused high school arm for sure. However, I had a dad who played professional baseball with the Detroit Tigers, who was a left-handed pitcher, and a lot of, there wasn't information that was mainstream that that you could implement as a dad to a son. So it was really, I mean, like, there wasn't a lot out there. But in my senior season, I threw 130 innings, in northern Indiana. So, the good and bad of that is I guess the good is that I survived it too. When I went to college, the workload there really wasn't a big change from what I was already really used to, which isn't normal. Um, so
When did y'all
under
start up in Indiana?
shoot, I jumped right from basketball straight to baseball. So I'd imagine
January,
you know,
February.
yeah, January or February, very similar to the South. So there wasn't a lot of preparation for me either, which I've helped kids with, ramp up periods and these pop in showcases and things where obviously you want to be ready, but you have to honestly ask yourself, am I ready to go here and have a
Right.
good showing for what I really can do for my skill set? And a lot of them, the answer is no. So um, leaving Auburn, then you start to get around people that in college you're an investment by the university. So there's a lot stronger resources to help you stay healthy and understand what that really is. And I said it earlier that the amount of trainers that I was around that were just so much smarter than me, and because it's their job.
Hmm.
When you're at the pro level, you are an investment and you're replaceable. Every year there's a draft to find more guys just like you.
Right.
So every year, your window is getting smaller if you're not developing, or injuries that are setbacks. If you miss a year in pro ball, it's way more detrimental, and actually really similar now to the developmental curve now because of technology and analytics and the way the recruiting is going now. It's kids don't have the time to really miss time
Right.
because it's so competitive.
Yep. Well, and that was the other point I was going to make. I mean, you were talented enough and you worked hard enough and you got yourself at the D1 level. So you had resources at D1 and even in the pros, whatever level of the pros, you had resources that a lot of kids don't have when they're going to Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, JUCO. There's just not the same resources. And then you go back down into the high schools and you've got even less unless they're, out there finding the right people to do it. So that obviously can lead to A, bad habits, B, bad workloads, and C, not understanding your body and what it can and can't take. And I had a conversation. I know you've talked to some as well, but talked to a couple of the doctors at Resurgence, just asking them some of these questions and what are they seeing in terms of what's causing some of these injuries. And those are resources people have to go to. But at that point, they go to those resources after the fact, after an injury. So it's a little too late. So I know you're a big part of what you do is involved in helping to mitigate that risk, helping to strengthen these kids and put them on programs and do some things that help from that. But that being said, what do you kind of see as being, some of the things today versus what you saw in the past that are causing such a jump in arm injuries, surgeries, or potential surgeries, and kids being shut down or having problems earlier and earlier than they used to?
Well, I think that baseball has done a great job of promoting the game. Um, However, I looked at some of the numbers uh, due to arm injuries and trying to look at, okay, is there one thing or is there multiple things that are contributors to, these guys getting hurt? I think one, the guys are way bigger, way stronger than they ever have been. And,
Yep.
and the need for output and performance is outperforming the preventative side for sure. When the pitch clock was introduced, because I remember a guy, Steve Traxel, was just notorious for taking forever. And I'm a believer that every guy, at least on the pitching side, and I know on the offensive side too, there's your own performance clock where you're ready. You might step
Right.
out of the box, take a little more time, some guys a little less. So I compare it to lifting. If you're going to do a max lift, there's a lot more time in between those reps because they're more demanding.
Right.
So with a pitch clock and throwing a baseball at max intent, now you start to shorten the clock of rest time or your reset time as a pitcher, what your body's used to, or just mentally, hey, I'm ready to throw a new pitch. I'm ready to commit to this next pitch. If you shorten that timetable, which isn't yours, by the way, I think it's a recipe for disaster. When I looked at the numbers, there's 615 pitchers that threw one inning at the major league level, and these are 2024 numbers. And the long and short is money spent on arm injuries was over $193 million. And money spent on players missing time was over $253 million. So, it's obviously in everybody's face, but, I think what pro players don't consider is the trickle down effect. The things that they're doing are filtering down to college players, youth players, and not only like performance. I'm all good with the excitement of the game and the appreciation and the admiration for what guys can physically do, because it is incredible. But like the behavior side and the professionalism, those are all things that all these kids see every day. And again, with the publicizing of all this through Major League Baseball, which is fantastic, we've got to be aware of what we're doing. If Major League Baseball was more apt to show some of the routine stuff and talk about longevity and I think this last year there was only two guys that has publicized that they exceeded a 10-year pension. They had played in the big leagues for 10 years. And when I was coming up, that was the main thing, is that if you play long enough, you're going to run into great opportunities, maybe some championships, but definitely opportunity. And I think that's what we're missing is the longer you play and the healthier you are, you're going to run into opportunities. And then what you do with those opportunities, obviously, can go really two different ways, but at least you're there and accountable to grab hold of those opportunities.
Yeah, it almost feels like, to your point, almost feels like, it's kind of like the running back in NFL. You're kind of churning guys out. You ask them from max level. It takes max level on a constant basis, and you push it so far, and then you say, okay, next up, next guy, give me the next one. And to your point, some of these guys aren't making it to a career that they typically would have figured out how do I stick around longer and have those opportunities. Now it's how do I get in there and make my money quick and hope I stick around, or I get TJ and then I'll be back in a year and a half, 2 years, and I'll try it all over again, try to get back into it. It's kind of a shame, but like you said, kids are seeing that same thing. So it's how do I push myself, push myself, push myself.
Yeah, I think the importance of routine. I know there's some guys that put out, stuff regarding routine, but again, what people don't realize is that it took that player 4, 5, 6, 8 years to understand what works for them.
Right.
And that just kind of leads you back to the uniqueness of baseball. Like, you can't train all guys the same way. And
Yeah.
I think what I tell guys is you should really have two visions. One is a telescope kind of view, and one is a microscope view. And so the things that you want to accomplish, whether it's JV, varsity, beyond high school playing, or even at the professional level, those are all telescope views. Those are way down the road. They're far away. And what they do is they neglect the microscope vision, which is obviously right in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, what I think we need to pay more attention to help guys achieve what they want down the road. But, you can't put them in the opposite order.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, it's just like when we're coaching a team. It's, hey, let's win this. Let's win this one inning. Let's focus on this. Let's focus on what's in front of us. Let's focus on what we can control right now, and the rest will kind of fall into place. If you have the right habits in the cage, or have the right habits at practice, and kind of do those things, you don't have to think about it in the game, and you're not trying to at age 15, you're not trying to you know, play D1 right now. You're just trying to make sure, like you said, make your JV team out there. So a couple
They
other,
say process
yeah,
driven. I mean, it's
yeah,
there's patience that comes with the process. And again, I know that's hard,
right,
but at the end of the day, it's twice as rewarding when you get what you've really committed to.
right. So A couple of the things, and again, we're gonna keep this first one relatively short and appreciate it. And you and I are going to be together on a regular basis and having more of these conversations, but kind of want to get the first overview. You know, um, in terms of talking about how we can help with these processes and do that, you've got some programs, you got some things that you're doing currently. If you want to speak to that, and then kind of tell people also how they can kind of get in touch with you and reach out to you to have deeper conversations about how to take care of their kids.
Absolutely. So once, travel ball, I put that behind me. And I was always committed to development, always. Even our travel model was about development.
Hmm.
Because I felt like that's something in baseball and sports and in most everything that it's going to come back to it eventually. So why not just commit to it and offer that from the get go?
Right.
And so the demands of teams and the time and that I think a lot of people don't think about. It's a lot for these guys that do it.
Hmm.
And what I did was found a platform that on the developmental side helps teams one, because there's a lot of coaches that, you know, they may or may not know the things that at least I've learned. And I feel selfish if I don't share those things with coaches. So it's almost like an additional assistant coach. And with technology, you can see how an athlete moves. So with this platform, what I've done, and I'm supporting 4 teams right now, is the ability to have a profile for an athlete, which is kind of mainstay now, where kids are used to having profiles and things like that and interact through that. Well, the parents can find video of a kid in a game when obviously that's where it matters, and anything that's outside of competition can be videoed. And
Right.
there's comparables that you can do to see kind of like, hey, why is this not translating from practice to a game, or what are the things that we need to change? What do we need to do with routine and arm care and the mental side of it,
Hmm.
and then offer the platform to go, hey, these are the problems that we've identified, and this is how we can attack it. So with this platform, it's just incredible, and it just leads you to more things that are great for youth players,
Hmm.
and it's really individualized. So it's not a group thing where a player feels like, hey, I'm going to get lost in this group. So not only coaches but individuals can benefit, and you have dads that are playing catch with their sons, or they had membership somewhere where they can go work on these things, and they actually have a plan when they're working. There's specific goals that are for them. Like we talked about with baseball, if you're coaching everybody the same way, somebody's going to lose it. Now it may
Right.
stick with a couple guys that it pertains to, but to really customize it to the player is it's really incredible.
Well, and I've seen the work you've done with that platform. You actually shared with me, and I'm helping my guys as well through something similar. But what you're doing has been fantastic in the detail and the way you explain it to the kids. How can families or people reach out to you? Is that via Instagram? Is there some other ways to get to you?
Well, Facebook and Instagram have been our main resources to
Okay.
to get in touch with us and kind of show people, and then from there it's because some people are kind of tech intimidated, and it's a really simple process, literally 30 seconds to get a profile. It's just
Right.
a click on an email,
Yep.
and we can send you demo videos and show you how we interact with players on the fly, and it's really convenient because a lot of kids are visual learners, and some of
Hmm.
these videos stick where you can say, okay, look at where we started and look at where we are now. And
Right.
that's really what's fulfilling to me is when you take the next step, and then you can
Right.
take the next step, and
And you're
before you
building
know
their
it,
confidence because they're seeing the improvement, they're seeing the change.
yeah, you're actively helping the athlete pursue that microscope vision
Right.
on a day-to-day basis, so that the platform is readily available for them. So it's
Okay.
really cool.
Well, good. Well, listen, we're coming close on time here, so give me an address that they can reach you at. What is it at Instagram?
On Instagram is Chris Bootcheck Pitching Solutions,
Okay.
and on Facebook it's the same, Chris Bootcheck Pitching Solutions. And any questions anyone has, any gray area that they have, or any help that they need, feel free to reach out.
Well, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you helping me with this kind of inaugural thing. I'm kind of trying to launch this and trying to help out as well. So I appreciate the friendship, appreciate the information, and I will tell anybody that's watching this or that sees this, I highly recommend the work that you do. You've done a great job with a ton of kids in the area already, and I wish you much success. I know we'll be talking a lot more. So. Look, I appreciate the friendship and appreciate the opportunity to have you here today.
Likewise, I appreciate you having
Thanks,
me.
man. See you,
Thanks,
buddy.
Craig.